Okay, so we are live. Hello, friends. Welcome to my new video. It's been a long time. I had not made a video, so I will be today discussing ending. So we will go have a different approach now that we will focus only on the endings, like which will showcase that how we should be playing good endings. So here uh, the position is already set up, and if you see then white is Frank Marshall and black is chose role Capablanca, and this was played in 1909 and New York 1909. So Capablanca has a slight positional advantage in the endgame that he has a pawn majority. So if you see, so there are three pawns compared to two. No? So here they are. No? So there are three, and here there are two. Right. So two. So let's say if one of the pawn goes away. No? Let's assume for a moment that we don't have this pawn. No? They are exchange. This and this pawn are exchange. So here now black will have 2 versus 1. No? Let's say one more pawn gets exchanged. So ignore the rooks and everything. So I'm just telling that now there is only one pawn and black may most probably this will be exchanged, and the a pawn will now march forward now. So that is what black is aiming for in this position. And so another advantage of let's say now you will say that black has a queen side majority and white has a king side majority, but if you see the distance, the king is the white king. Let's say I have a pawn majority on the queen side, so white king is a bit far away. So considering that all the pieces are exchanged, and if we have a king race, then this pawn will run away, and this king has to really go here and stop this pawn, and it might give our king to just penetrate this one. Also, there are some holes in white position due to the fianchetto. So here, here and here we have some holes here, and but black's position is quite solid. Here there are no holes. The so now we see that queen side majority is there with black, and in most cases it becomes a very effective weapon than a king side pawn majority due to these reasons. So black plans will be to get the queen side pawn rolling at every available opportunity. Should try to take these pawns further and leave like a scenario where there is only one black pawn. Okay, so then black will have to either then black will promote it queen, and that will cost opponent a piece, or while he's trying to prevent black from doing so. So looking to this advantage that black has, what black doing is he moves the pawn further, so that starts playing out his trumps, the queen side pawn majority. So from black should take every chance to push ahead his pawns to make more pressure to white. Okay, so now white made this move, So the idea is that here black cannot play b4 now, because if I play b4, then a takes b, rook takes b4, then white has a nice rejoinder because this pawn is pinned. So let's say I take this, and now you will see that actually black is a rook down. So nice move by Marshall. He is inviting white to play b4, but white may not play b4. So I would like you to first think now that if you are black, what will you play in this position? Give yourself around 30 seconds to think what will be your move. Okay, so those who have thought about it got this right. It is the move c4. That is the what black had played. Okay, so now there is another move which Marshall played, was bishop f3. But let's say this pawn is pinned, and you want to take advantage of it. Why not just play b3? If you play b3, then black has a nice rejoinder of rook queen to a5, which attacks the rook. Now if the rook moves, then this pawn he can now take, because this is no longer pinned. And let's say he takes this to prevent, like to support the rook, but still this pawn will go. So it's a so in this case black will have to play b4, but that will mean that this pawn will be a passed pawn, and this is also protected passed pawn. So that will give black a protected passed pawn, which is not a good thing for white. So naturally no such thing, b3 was played. He played bishop f3, also to make some hold on d file, so that I can place a rook here. uh, so here Capablanca plays immediately the only open file which is available in the position, and its advantage is like a very small advantage, that you have got a open file. Okay, it's not a big advantage, but accumulation of this little small advantages that brings the opponent to the breaking point and forces him to capitulate. So slowly we will be gathering this kind of advantages. Marshall immediately challenges the open file, and Capablanca actually takes it. So whenever you have this kind of positions, it's always better to exchange one rook, and do not exchange the second rook that easily. So that's a rule. And now Capablanca, after doing this, also takes the once again takes the full command of the board, and he plays this file again. So observe that still he cannot play any move like this. So his Lasker here mentions, like, he is also an annotator, and he studied this game, so he plays an example of how slight weaknesses they should be utilized. So this is a good example, a good game which showcases that slight advantages, how you can utilize it. Okay, so Marshall doesn't allow Capablanca to go to the 8th rank or something. Yeah. and he plays this move. Now Capablanca plays g6 to gives the queen a free air, you know, and this is a good move that it plans to make this move, and then it plays this move, you know. So why it is important to play like this is because of the move g6. So let's say if instead you directly, instead of playing g6, you directly put the rook here on the 7th rank. uh, yeah, it's a very powerful 7th rank, I agree that. Okay, okay, so here black can play c2, and now he cannot so this bishop is now because the rook has gone away from the la from the back rank and made to rook d2. So the problem is I cannot move my bishop. There is no mobility for my bishop. No. So let's say I put this uh, rook d2 and rook c2, and I am attacking this, but this will be a checkmate. So the idea is not to show that there is no checkmate like such, but the concept that this bishop has a problem now, that it's sort of a pin, you know. So and it gives some threats to white. So why to allow them instead to play safely, play g6 first, so that we can eliminate all kinds of counterplay. So now so let's say now if in response white wants to use his rook, he cannot, so this will be a very silly thing that he plays bishop c2, because then there will be an x-ray, and this rook will be gone. There's no way then to save it. So there are some things which can happen along with the king safety with g6. So I can just go out. So now I can play in next move, I can play rook d2 kind of move. So after g6 he plays Marshall plays rook c6. Okay, so once it was not okay, so now Capablanca doesn't take it, because if you take it, then you have to spend a move to defend this pawn, like you have to like go here, or I don't know, maybe let's put here. So there will be some effort to save this pawn, no, which is invite a counterplay. So now so what Capablanca does is he plays queen to e5. So immediate exchange of the queen he must be avoided, so that we don't lose a move by protecting it. Now with queen e5 we are protecting the b pawn through horizontally, and yeah. So now Marshall again puts the an exchange offer, and now Capablanca accepts the exchange offer, you know, and this doesn't lose a move for black. So here if you see the textbook definition of a good end game, then actually white is has a better end game here, because all the pawns are on the dark squares and white has a light square bishop. And on the contrary, Capablanca has all the light square pawns. Only one, okay, let's give that. Only one is a dark square. So like it should white should have a superior position. In his bishop controls squares of a different color than he what pawns he has. So white should have a good position. Black is in total violation of the precept as a bishop hampered is pawn, nearly all of which occupy the theory of the same color. So as per theory, Capablanca is not in a good position. But there are some counterplay which is in real life, like what I mentioned about 3 versus 2 advantage, and there is a possibility of the rook also going here. So another thing I wanted to add is this rook, if it is on 7th rank, is more powerful than the one on the 8th rank. The reason only being that there are pawns on the 7th rank which the white black rook can target. Okay, so that's, or any rook can target, because that's why the 7th rank is said to be the strongest. You don't get the same kind of attacks on the 8th rank, except if there's a back rank mate, of course we'll have to take it, you can get, but the 7th rank is more powerful. Okay, so here Capablanca doesn't rely on theory. He goes to this ending relying on his own instincts. He makes his own rules and he's a master. So he opens up new worlds, of course. You know. So now, what am I doing here? Yeah. So here, so now here the Capablanca also doesn't go to the 7th rank, so he first gives a check, and here the idea is that he will go behind the enemy pawns, but right now it's not possible. There is a bishop here which overlooks this one, but he's just put the rook at the right place, and here the once again Capablanca moves another queen side pawn, so he moved a pawn on 18th move, and now on the 27th move he again moves a pawn. So the queen side pawn move ahead every chance they are getting, and blacks, that's why, maintain the strong initiative even though queens are off the board. Okay, another thing is that this move also prevents black from coming here, and rook d1, I mean, and so the in order to bring back the rook, because here the rook was not doing anything, so he tries to bring back the rook into play by playing the move rook c2. Again, every chance black gets, he tries to further push ahead, and first step is completed, that there is a pawn exchange. Okay, now Marshall attacks the bishop. Okay, but let's say instead, let's say if Marshall is not, he doesn't want to move his centralized bishop, let's say he comes here, the idea is that why not attack the rook by the king. Okay, so here he might fall into this trap playing b3, and here if he plays rook e2, then here I can play bishop to h3. Okay, which is a brilliant move, because now next move rook doesn't have any place to run, and the next move, let's say I enter another move, I'm not sure what white should play to save his rook, but let's say I enter insert on null move, and the threat is to play bishop to f1, and now the rook is trapped. There is no place to go. So building bishop f3 also targets the d1, and here the king was just coming in the way, so that's why, and there is no threat by playing king f3 because of b3, and he has to move. He can also move here, but then he will lose this pawn, as there is absolutely no defense for this pawn. Then he has to forget this pawn, and then these two connected pass pawns will be very dangerous for black. Anyway, so Marshall attacks the rook by playing bishop f3. So we are on move 30, and as anticipated, Capablanca goes behind the enemy's pass pawn. So whenever you have a pass pawn, let's say you are pressing, you should be behind, not sideways, not front. You should be behind, and this applies also to the enemy pawns. That if you want to attack, always attack from behind, not from here, not from here. Best is to attack from behind. Now there is another disadvantage which white has, that he's protecting his pawn from sideways, which doesn't allow white to move ahead this pawn. So he's like completely packed. Now Marshall plays bishop e2. So very cleverly he adjusts his bishop, that bishop f3, then he makes it. So now he's targeting this pawn to take this pawn, but then he will lose this pawn as well. So let's see what he anticipates. So here, so Marshall thought that I will force, due to this, I will force black to play c3, and so you think about it like for 30 seconds. Why c3 is bad move? Why c3 is bad move? Okay, with c3 we have bc3. Let's say white pushes further his pawn. White has to move away, and now b2. So the threat is to play something like rook g1 check and then promote to a queen. But here white has a move, a defense, bishop d3, and now he has lost a pawn. White has lost a pawn, and he cannot now queen. Now he has to move his rook, and he will lose this second pawn as well. So that's the reason it was a bit tricky. c3 is bad move, and that's why c3 is a bad move. So but it was not played, and Capablanca played instead the move b3. So he played the move b3. This is the proper pawn push. It forces white to once again concede some space by playing d2. Now there is another variation. You might ask that why not just play this move? What happened with rook c3? So with c3 we have rook takes b2 attacking this bishop. Let's say then he takes this, but now instead of taking bishop takes bishop, white has a beautiful move, rook c2, and this is winning now. So there is no way. So if I take this one, he loses the bishop now. So that's why better he thought was to play rook d2, maintaining the position. Now now this small advantages, we have to make some small adjustments in our position of the rook, so that to harass white even further. So Capablanca plays the move rook c1. The idea is to put the rook here and between the rook and the pawn which he is defending, and to literally force him out of the game, because the bishop cannot also come here, because of the c4 pawn. So this is the uh, trait which black is working on. So now he has to prevent the rook from coming to rook c2. So he places the rook bishop on d1. So this seems to do the trick. But Capablanca has two strings in his bow in the potential pass pawn lust to expand. So he places the move c3. Okay. Now Marshall plays rook takes pawn takes pawn, and he places b2, so forcing white to give up the control of his bishop. By giving two pawns, he is giving up the pawn. But you can also see that after this white will also have a pass pawn. So what to do about that? Let's see. So he is now, white is literally forced to take this pawn, otherwise it will queen. So you might ask that why not just play this move. If I queen, then I will take the queen. Okay, but that won't happen because black has rook takes c2, and now he can queen. So small things like this should be taken into consideration. Okay, so now rook takes b2 was played as the 35th move, and Capablanca wins the bishop, and white also immediately puts the pawn rook behind the pawn, and he now threatens to move this pawn to queen. No. So Capablanca's treatment of the ending from the point on it is a revelation. While keeping white busy in the defense of his pass pawn, so here is the plan which Capablanca is going to follow. So here white keeping the white busy in the defense of his pass pawn, Capablanca whips up an attack which drives the king into a mating net. So with these few pieces, Capablanca plans to drive the into a mating net, white king into a mating net. All this is done with so little material and in so few moves. So here Chernev writes this, that all this is done with so little material and in so few moves makes this ending the very best of its kind. It will repay study by master as well as by amateur. So this position, I will say, think about 30 seconds or play against the computer and see if you can win like how Capablanca played. So first of all, Capablanca moves the rook which was on a good position, so he forces the rook to move away. So the rook goes away to b2, and now Capablanca pushes his rook behind white's pass pawn. He attacks the rook, or he attacks the pawn. Sorry, what am I speaking? Okay, so now and enables black to occupy the file and attack the pawn. So fine. Now in defense of this pawn, white plays rook to b3, but this is not a good position for the rook. He is in sideways, so that means this pawn cannot move forward. You know, like the sideways defense is not that good, but at least he is preserving his pawn. You know, so that is a passive defense in order to save the pawn. Okay, so now Capablanca plays bishop to e4 check. Okay, so here there are main two possibilities: f3 check, then we can give a check, and then he will lose this pawn as well. So it's not advisable to play f3, and he can directly move his king out. Okay, now Capablanca just improves his rook's position to attack at the like this seventh rank is the strongest rank. So now he's putting his rook at the right place. Now, fine. So materially, black is a bishop up and white is two pawns in place of bishop, and yeah. So white is an the rook now is on the ideal position and behind the pass pawn. Fine. So to protect this pawn, that is what can I do? I can't come here. I have to move this pawn. No. So I can just he just plays f5, and now Capablanca plays h5. So the idea is that let's say, what is the idea? You can also think about it for 30 seconds. Let me show you quickly. Bishop f5 check, h4, h2 check, king g7. Okay, so this is kind of a mating net. You can also place the rook here because he cannot prevent this, and here. So this can happen, and black is in a kind of a mating threat from the rook. Also there is a threat like this. If this rook is not coming here, we can give f3 mate also, f6 mate also. So here, so this kind of ideas are there with h5, and in order to break free from this kind of mating net, white plays a move which gives access to the g3 square, and there is an exchange of pawns, and Capablanca still has some time, like this pawn is not running away anywhere, so he takes the pawn which was a free pawn, and here white plays rook to b4 attacking the bishop, but black has the move f5 check, and it also protects the bishop. Okay, now there will be a problem if white moves forward attacking this pawn, because black will have an interesting move. Note that white cannot give a check now, because of this bishop which is looking at this diagonal. So now the threat is to play rook h5 mate. Note that this is not a mate because there is a square to h4, so this is a proper mate. So don't miss this kind of mates, one mover. Okay, so with f5 check he goes up back and attacks the rook, Capablanca, instead of giving just useless checks, he gives a threat to take this pawn. Now white plays rook to c4 because he can give a check from here and from here as well. Now black gives a check. White moves forward. Use king g7. So idea is to surround the king. Now he can give a check. And now think about it that if you are playing black, what will you move? Will you play king to f6 or king to h6? What will you play? That is the main motive. Okay, if you have thought about it, well and good. So let's say he plays king to h6. Okay, then the reply will be to play rook to e7, like pins the bishop. And now if he takes this pawn, then we have rook to e6. Alright, and now let's say white wants to give a checkmate next move. Then white has the absolutely mind-blowing thing here. So that was the last trap which Capablanca sidestepped with king to f6. King to f6. Now note that he cannot give you a check from here, it's not possible. And so he moves his rook to d7, and Capablanca carries his original threat of playing the next move to rook to h3. And here white can give a check, and he goes back. So now the point is rook d7 check, and now he goes to king h6. Okay, so this followed by rook h3 mate, which you cannot prevent. But let's say I don't give a check here. What if I move my king to g5? Okay, so then it will be the same. King g5. Then it will be rook g3 check, and there is only one move. And now hg4 mate. So here king f6 is the main line. d7 king h6. Now which is the main line? Rook d6 king g7. Okay, here he didn't played any move, like these are all variations. So here the white resigned the game. So this was a black win. So ladies and gentlemen, I hope you liked the video. So Capablanca showed absolute mastery of the endgame by pushing his pawns c4. So again exchanging one rook but not the other. g6. Again exchange on your own terms, not on your opponent's terms, which allowed him rook d8 check. Now these pawns are slowly pushing ahead, doesn't give any chance to white Like even though he had a pass pawn, he was like totally helpless. Okay, so Capablanca after this game himself says of this game that I am able to wind up the match with one of the most accurate games I had ever played. So this was a match between Marshall and Capablanca, and he was able to wind up with this most accurate play. So yeah, let's hope you like the game and keep watching more videos. Like, share, and subscribe. Thank you very much.